Welcome to the Urban Spokesman. My name is Chris Sanders, and I'm giving micromobility users the news they need to stay up to speed on micromobility and urban infrastructure in New York City. That's right. All right, first up, we've got new data from the company Georgia's 11 Alive. It estimates that around 600,000 uh, sorry, not 600,000, 880,000 e-bikes were sold in 2021 compared with about 600,000 electric cars also in 2021 being sold. So that means e-bikes are selling a lot more than electric cars. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Edward Bridgman of the Light Electric Vehicle Association believes that more than 1 million e bikes will be sold in the United States this year in 2022. Now, many pundits and people, media gods, people, who think they know everything, um, they're attributing this to people in large cities deciding that maybe I don't need to drive everywhere. Maybe I can get away with riding my bike. Oh, it's only a couple miles. Oh, the corner store's only down the street. For some trips, I can get some fresh air. It's really not that far, and I would prefer not to use gas at $4 a gallon. Which is tragic for many people who don't have the luxury of, you know, $4 a gallon gas is tragic for people who don't have the luxury of living in a big city for whatever reason. Maybe they don't like a lot of people, or they're, or they're, the rent is higher in the big city where in the safe parts. So, so, you know, so, but getting back to the story, you know, people want to save on gas, they want to save on parking. Um, and so they're turning to electric bikes. The New York Times had an article recently. I don't have it posted up here now, but the New York Times had an article recently that basically said that, parents were using cargo bikes to transport their kids to and from school every day. Um, you know, so that's a pretty big deal, if parents feel safe enough to ride in the streets, or they're doing it anyway because they need to find a way to save money. In cars, you got maintenance and insurance and gas. And if all of those costs are going to be going up, and let's say a brand new car costs like a lot more because of the supply shortage, um, you know, there's a lot that goes into building a car, and electric cars are totally out of reach for most Americans. You know, screw it. Why not an e-bike? Um, I ride an e-bike, because, in New York City, it's just faster. It's just faster than the train or the bus. And then it's certainly, going to be, or it's faster than the train or the bus or the car for that matter. Like during the weekday, it gets so busy. And so it's faster than the car, um, and the bus and the train. The train, it's like 10 minutes wait times, 6 minute wait times. You know, at that rate, then we're not getting anywhere. It's faster and less, drama for me to just hop on my bike. All right. So next story, this one near and dear to all of our hearts. E-bikes are still technically illegal in the New York City parks and greenways. And I'm like, okay, you want less in theory, they say the politicians are saying they want less traffic on the roads, and they want more order in the streets. But what I don't see them really doing anything about it. So here in this story, we have Sue Donoghue, the head of the Parks Department. She still has not done anything to legalize e-bikes in New York City parks and on greenways. So here's, I've true confession. Look, I am generally I'm a more liberal person on many things, more Democrat on many things, but I think a lot of times, you know, Democrats overcomplicate the e-bike issue, or excuse me, not just this issue, many issues. They overcomplicate many issues by like, oh, well, what about this and what about that? Oh, we can't do that because of that. That one's gonna. I'm like, sometimes you just need to do the right policy and then say get some data, some data, hardcore data after getting it back, and then implement, you know, you know, oh, we're gonna need a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit here, or oh, we're gonna, uh, bikes under 150 pounds or something, you know, something along those lines, or under 200 pounds. What does the cargo bike weigh? Things like, they need to take default to freedom. Democrats and Republicans and everyone else need to default to freedom for people to live their lives. So, Sue Donoghue has not done anything to legalize e-bikes in New York City parks and greenways. She stated that the Parks Department was in fact focused on working through the issues. Girl, what? Just do it. Like, you're wasting money on signs that no one's listening to. She even went forward and she's like, look, we don't even have a timeline for figuring out the issue. E-bikes are not the same as mopeds and motorcycles. E-bikes weigh a lot less. So mopeds and motorcycles, they're gonna weigh like 500 pounds plus. E-bikes are nowhere near that. Then you have um, the fact that in the event of, like, people are concerned about safety, in the event of an accident, well, the bike rider, the e-bike rider, or the e-scooter rider is going to be the one who gets hurt the most. Like 99%, however, like 90% of the time, they're going to be the ones that get hurt the most. They're going to, like, you fall on your bike, you're going to scrape your knee and sprain your ankle or whatever. So the safety feature is built in. The safety feature is built in. So e-bike riders have an incentive to ride safely enough that they don't get hurt and they don't hurt someone else. Because if they hurt someone else, they're probably getting hurt too. All right. Another thing, no one is obeying, not many people are obeying it as it is, and it's deterring many people from actually getting an e-bike or getting a bicycle at all, because they don't feel entirely comfortable riding in New York streets with drivers becoming more aggressive, particularly against Black people and other people of color. Drivers drive more aggressively against them, and so they are more likely to be hurt by drivers, truck drivers, car drivers, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. In my opinion, it's the new prohibition, where people tried to ban alcohol and then that didn't work. And here we have Democrats trying to ban bikes in parks, e-bikes in parks. And by doing that, they are making themselves look like they're out of touch with the reality of the city, New York City. And this lack of a reality check among Democratic politicians and politicians in general puts black people and minorities at risk when they're delivering food, for rich people or just regular people, delivering, people who are not that mobile. They use electric wheelchairs in the bike lanes also. And, they say no motor of any kind is the language that is used. So that means electric wheelchairs, no. Electric bikes, no. Electric scooters, no. So if you are at all mobility impaired in some way, then no, you cannot use the Hudson Greenway or the Prospect Park or Central Park, technically speaking. And I believe that this no e-bikes rule is ableist and leaves, like I said a minute ago, people with disabilities or without any safe options for transporting themselves in New York City. And I also believe that the no e-bikes rule is classist, as most people riding bikes simply for recreation are rich. They can afford that $14,000 road bike, to ride it in their free time, blah, 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 whereas all the rest of us are, riding our e-bike to go to work or to deliver food or, to run errands, pick up groceries, pick up people picking up their kids from school. The list goes on and on. All right. And I also believe that all of the micromobility should be, should have their own lanes, and they have specific bike lanes in the Hudson Path and also in Central Park and Prospect Park and all these parks. So my conclusion is that I would prefer that the city lifted the restrictions outright on e-bikes and e-scooters in parks. Study what happens, gather some data, then come up with ways to mitigate the problems that arise in real life versus trying to foresee everything. Again, this is a default to freedom, and then say, oh, well, okay, we don't want motorcycles in the bike lane. So if it's not less than 300 pounds or 500 pounds or even 150 pounds, if your bike is not less than that, then that is when it's illegal. Anything over however many pounds, then that device is illegal. All right, last story. Yes, from Bloomberg financial magazine for the world, for New York City. They are saying that the next generation of city bikes, let me pull it up here. Yeah, here we go, right here. This beautiful guy right here is City Bike's new e-bike. Yes, Bloomberg is saying that the next generation of city bike e-bike has arrived, and they seem to be getting the attention of everyone. The new city bike looks even sleeker and goes even faster and farther than the previous version of City Bike's e-bike. They can go up to 20 miles an hour, and they have a range of 60 miles, which is double the previous model. That's right, everyone. Yes, they go faster and farther than previous city bikes. Now, despite the increased cost for riding the city bike, City Bike's e-bikes are ridden 3 times as much as a regular city bike. That's not electric. And sometimes people just have to get to where they need to go quickly. It's usually like 15 cents a minute, I think. Yeah, something like that. Don't quote me on it, but that's what I think it is. At the same time, people are riding new city bikes. Delivery workers are buying e-bikes, and regular people are opting for their own e-bikes using their own money or with assistance through several programs such as, various tax incentives to help people obtain e-bikes. Many parents have been buying cargo e-bikes, as referenced by the New York Times in a separate article that they did. They're like, wow, everybody's starting to buy cargo bike. What's going on? And to be honest, and this is because, as a practical matter, in New York City, e-bikes, in a lot of cases, are the fastest way for people to get around, to transport themselves, to do things that they actually need to do beyond just, oh, recreational riding. Please, everybody's not recreational riding. Like, I think people in cars think that only their situation matters and only their transportation matters. But the truth is that we should be prioritizing people who are using more efficient means of transportation, and we should be prioritizing people who, um, you know, who are using less space. That's less taxing on our infrastructure. It's less costly. We can save a nickel. Usually, I'm not for saving a nickel because it usually means people are just being cheap and greedy. But in this case, we're not being cheap and greedy. We're trying to, people want to be able to commute safely without having to load up on debt, with, $30,000 of debt minimum, without having to, when they drive their car on the street, it is more destructive to the street versus an e-bike. Well, the weather is more destructive to the street than an e-bike. So that's what I'm looking at, is like from a financial perspective, e-bikes and bike infrastructure in general is cheaper and more efficient for people living in a city. And when you have a city the size of New York, which has 9 million people living there, on top of that, you have all the tourists who are coming in, the local tourism from just outside of New York City, plus the tourism from all around the world. Well, the street's going to get a lot of wear and tear. And, if we can lower that by encouraging people to use public transportation or riding a bike or e-bike, we should be doing that. So we shouldn't be doing things like I said earlier, like banning e-bikes on bike lanes in the greenways and the parks. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with Bloomberg, but I'll leave it here. So yeah, we need to make sure that e-bikes are legal everywhere. I mean, maybe this is an issue that city council should take up and say, the agencies shouldn't be able to make this decision. We're going to make this decision for New York City ourselves and take it out of their hands, if that's even possible. I don't even know if that's possible, but sometimes I'm like, okay, get it done, and then we can fix it later, fix the rough edges later. So in any case, I hope you are having a great day, and yeah. Well, if you're not, let's make it a great day. All right, bye.